3 spine-chilling swimming pool horror tales, revealed secrets of the cursed and sinister depths. The old swimming pool was nothing but a dark chasm, its cracked tiles and greenish murky water a gateway to nightmares whispered among children. In the heart of the Martin family's new neighborhood, they had stumbled upon a place that children both revered and dreaded, a shrine to secrecy wrapped in sun-bleached abandonment. A place where laughter once echoed now stood shrouded in terror. What horrors lurk beneath its surface? As the Martins unpacked boxes, they had no idea what darkness awaited them. Mark and Sarah Martin stood hand in hand, watching their kids, Alex and Mia, eyeing the distant swimming pool. "It looks spooky, doesn't it?" Sarah said, shivering at the thought. "Spooky like a ghost story," Alex added, his eyes wide with curiosity. Little did they know that unseen eyes were already watching them, their presence lingering in the shadows, a hungry guardian of secrets long buried. The first night in their new home, Sarah noticed the flickering lights around the pool. "Did you see that?" She pointed, as shadows slinked about the area. "It's probably just old wiring," Mark reassured her, although the lump in his throat said otherwise. As whispers of past tragedies reached their ears, they reminded themselves it was just a rundown pool, a city relic lost to time. Yet, deeper inside, the feeling of dread simmered, feeding off the neighborhood's anxious glances. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. When the Martins finally gave in to curiosity, the pool became the backdrop to laughter and splashes. Until Alex, terrified, burst from the murky depths, gasping for air, shouting that something had pulled him down. Silence descended as parents locked eyes, disbelief fading into panic. As parents debated the safety of the water, strange occurrences only amplified fears, leaving worries to spiral. Determined to shield their children, Mark and Sarah investigated the pool's past. Chilling stories unfolded, behind the laughter lingered tales of drownings connected to a predator lurking in lifeguard's uniform. Gasps of horror filled their home as they confronted neighbors. "You knew!" they shouted, feeling the weight of betrayal settle around them. Guilt-fueled tension boiled over, and then, it happened. One evening, as twilight cast long shadows, a sinister force beckoned Mia to the water. Mark and Sarah's hearts pounded, racing toward the beckoning darkness. Fear spilled into their actions as they leaped into the depths together, struggling through the chilling grip of water that felt alive. Shadows wrapped around them, cold and consuming, each breath tightening as screams shrieked in their ears. Emerging from the chaos, gasping for air, the Martins realized they were not alone in their anguish. The pool was not merely an abandoned structure, it was a living, breathing nightmare, a place ignited by the collective fears of a paralyzed community. They could feel those lost souls, whispers of despair intertwined with their own as they gasped for breath, hearts racing and blood pumping. Now, safe and shaken, the family stood on the edge of the crumbling pool, staring down at what lay below. The darkness seemed eager, waiting for its next victim. Who else would dare descend into its cursed depths? Would they be the ones to finally break the silence, or would they too become part of the whispers echoing through the summer air? As they left the water behind, the sinister air thickened. The secrets of the neighborhood remained buried, waiting to claim new souls. Days melded into a haunting blur for the Martins. Each evening, as twilight crept closer, the memories of their terrifying encounter festered in their minds. Mark and Sarah tried to act normal for Alex and Mia, they laughed a little louder, prepared dinner with forced cheer, but the unshakable feeling of dread hung like a shadow over their home. One night, as they settled down for dinner, the lights flickered again. Sarah's heart dropped. "Not this again," she whispered, glancing uneasily at Mark. His eyes darted to the window where the pale moonlight barely illuminated the pool outside. The troubled water rippled unnaturally, as if something stirred beneath its surface, something alive. Let us just finish eating, Mark said, trying to sound composed. As they sat around the table, the children chattered, but their laughter felt wrong off-key, underscored by a tension that made Mark twitch with nerves. Later that night, Sarah lay in bed, unable to sleep. She could hear the faint sound of splashes from the pool outside, as if a game was unfolding just beyond her window. A chill shot through her at the thought and she turned onto her side, back to it, willing herself to ignore the noises. Then, a soft whisper brushed against her ear, a name. Mia. She bolted upright, breath hitching in her throat. Mark. Did you hear that? She barely recognized her own voice, thick with panic. Mark stirred beside her, confusion etching his features. Hear what? That name. It called her name, she insisted, the vulnerability in her voice thick enough to choke on. Mark frowned, putting a protective arm around her. But deep down, he felt it too. They were not alone in this house, they couldn't ignore the pull of the pool any longer. Let us check on them, Mark said, though fear gripped his heart. As they stepped into the cool corridor, the house seemed to sigh. Each floorboard creaked under their weight, echoing through the stillness. Mia's room was dark, the door slightly ajar. They exchanged worried glances before Mark pushed it open. The bed was empty. Sarah gasped, panic flooding her veins. Mia. She called, her voice cracking. Alex. Mark shouted, glancing down the darkened hallway. Where are you guys? Silence swallowed him whole. Anxiety twisted in his gut, a terrifying sense of foreboding nagging at the edges of his sanity. Just then, a faint giggle floated from the hallway, the kind of innocent laughter that should bring warmth but instead sent icy fingers crawling down their spines. They rushed toward the sound, hearts pounding, dread swelling in their chests. By the time they reached the back door, it creaked open, an invitation into the night. The garden gave way to the unavoidable presence of the pool, its surface shimmering under the moonlight. Mia. Sarah called desperately, stepping forward, each step heavy with the weight of her fear. In that moment, a vision of darkness surged forth. The water rippled, but this time it wasn't just a wave, it was a hand. A small, pale hand reached out from the depths, beckoning. Sarah's breath caught as she realized it wasn't just her daughter, it was a past victim, longing to drag another into the chilling depths. Mia. She shrieked, a mix of terror and hope swirling within her. The chilling laughter echoed louder, wrapping around them like a sinister embrace. Mark lost his grip, heart racing as reality twisted. Mia was being drawn to the pool. No! He yelled, lunging forward just as the pool erupted in a surge of bubbles and chaos. The sharp gasp from Alex pinned them with dread. There, standing at the edge, eyes wide with horror, he screamed, "There's someone in the water." Mark turned, heart racing, everything plunging into darkness around them. Fear clawed up his throat. What do we do? But then the pool convulsed again and someone rose from the depths, something ghastly and twisting, its eyes locked on theirs with a hunger that promised terror beyond comprehension. With every ounce of courage left, Sarah shouted the only thing that filled her mind. Run! But could they escape the clutches of a nightmare that seemed to want them, more than anything else? As they turned to flee, the water whispered their names, a promise that echoed through the night. Who would survive the wrath of the pool? Who would feed its endless thirst? They bolted from the poolside, breathless and terrified. The night air felt heavy, wrapping around them like a grating fog. Sarah's heart pounded so loud it drowned out everything else. What do we do? She gasped, her mind racing. Mark didn't look back, but she could sense his fear mirroring her own. Mia. Alex. Mark called again, his voice cracking with urgency. The kids had to be nearby. The garden was under a suffocating gloom, the shadows shifting unnaturally, as if alive. Just as they reached the edge of the porch, Sarah halted. We can't leave them. She glanced back over her shoulder, the pool almost glowing ominously in the dark. It beckoned to her, whispering of secrets hidden beneath its murky surface. Mark gripped her arm tightly. We can't go back there. We need to find help. Suddenly, a splashing noise erupted from behind them. They spun around, fear coursing through their veins. Alex stumbled out from the shadows, eyes wide and wild. They're not in the house. They went to the pool. What? Mark shouted, dread washing over him. You saw them? I don't know. I heard them laughing. A shiver ran through Alex, his voice trembling. It wasn't their laugh. It was wrong. Before Mark could respond, a shriek pierced the night air, a high, inhuman wail that twisted Sarah's gut. It reverberated, echoing from the depths of the pool, and then suddenly silenced. The world felt still, unnaturally so, as if everyone in the universe held their breath. Please, no, Sarah whispered, an inexplicable fear clawing at her. We have to go back. Mark dragged her back toward the pool, his grip firm yet shaky. We're going to get them. But we have to be careful. As they edged closer, the water grew eerily calm, the surface mirroring the moonlight like glass. Mia. Alex. Mark called out again, desperation lacing each word. The laughter they had heard earlier returned dark and mocking, sending chills down their spines. It sounded close, too close. Sarah leaned over the edge of the pool. Mia, she screamed, searching the water for any sign of her daughter. When she saw it, the pale hand now fully outstretched, fingers clawing towards them. The figure was a child, with sunken eyes and a smile that twisted her insides. Mia. Sarah cried again, but her voice cracked with terror. The child in the water changed shape, shifting into a grotesque imitation of her daughter. Help me, Mommy, it sang, but the sound was wrong, dripping with malice. Mark shouted, this isn't real. It's a trick. He yanked Sarah back, pulling her away from the pool's edge, but it was too late. The air grew dense around them. From the depths, a loud splash erupted as another hand broke free. Then another. Shadows began to swell, dark figures rising, all whispering for them. Join us. Join us, heart racing. Sarah turned to Alex and shouted, get inside. Run. Before he could move, the figures lunged. One of the faces broke through the surface, eyes locked onto Alex, pulling him towards the water with an unmistakable force. Alex! Mark yelled, reaching out, but the water exploded in a frenzy of chaos. Mark pulled Sarah and Alex away, adrenaline pumping as he shouted, we have to fight. We can't let them take us. As they stumbled back, Sarah felt something brush past her ankle, icy fingers pulling her toward the darkness. She kicked, terror driving her movements. Don't look back. Just run. The laughter grew, a chorus of voices delighting in their fear as they fled toward the house. With each step, their chance of escape narrowed. Suddenly, the back door flew open, revealing a face they hadn't seen in weeks. Mia stood there, drenched, but her eyes were not her own. Help me. The voice was sweet, yet laced with treachery. Time froze. The pool mirrored their fears, twisting their reality into something they could not comprehend. Who was the real Mia? And as they backed away, the pool whispered again, this time louder, drowning out their thoughts. Would they snatch her back before it was too late, or would they lose everything to the depths forever? They skidded to a halt, hearts racing as the sight of Mia sent waves of confusion crashing over Sarah. The child they thought lost in the water stared at them, drenched hair clinging to her cheeks, her small body trembling as she stood framed in the dark doorway. No, 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 Mark muttered, backpedaling. That's not her. It can't be. Shut up. Sarah snapped, desperation igniting her voice. Mia. She took a step forward, instinct overpowering her fear. Come here. It's Mommy. But the girl only tilted her head, a mockery of innocence playing across her features. Help me, she sang again, but the melody was hollow. It lacked warmth. Behind them, the pool bubbled ominously. The dark figures emerged from the water, their movements jerky and unnatural, as if they were old marionettes with tangled strings. The laughter reached a fever pitch, mocking, echoing off the walls of the house. "Get inside!" Alex yelled, panic lacing his words as he grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her back from the edge of the abyss. "We can't stay out here." Mark hesitated, his gaze flickering to Mia, who stepped closer to the exit, eyes wide but devoid of love. "Please, I need you," she crooned, each syllable dripped with a sinister sweetness that sent shivers racing down Sarah's spine. Tension weighed heavily in the air. "We can't trust it. It's a trick." Mark shouted again, this time sounding more like a plea. "Sarah, we have to go." The laughter shifted to wailing, a chorus of lost souls crying out from the depths, reaching towards them. "Join us!" they cried. The words hung in the air, encouraging and terrifying. Suddenly, without warning, Mia's face contorted. A flash of something dark flickered in her eyes, a glimpse of madness. "Join us," she whispered ominously, and something deep in Sarah's gut twisted. That was not her daughter. No. Sarah screamed, finally breaking the paralysis. She lunged forward instinctively, grasping for Mia, but Mark held her back. "Don't. It's dangerous." In that instant of hesitation, a frigid breeze swept through the yard, chilling them to their cores. The figures turned their gaze to Sarah, and she felt their eyes searching for the weakness, the doubt nestled in her heart. "What do we do?" she shouted, her voice cracking against the sinister chorus surrounding them. The pool's surface rippled violently, bulging like something monstrous was pushing against it from below, ready to burst free. Mark's breath hitched. "We need to split up. Get Mia away from that door. Alex, you run to the car. Sarah and I will get her." "No." Alex cried, but there was something so forceful in Mark's tone. "You have to trust us. Just go." With a nod that looked more like a lifeline than assurance, Alex sprinted towards the driveway, glancing back nervously as he went. "Mia. Come on." Sarah reached towards her daughter, her heart breaking at the sight of the child she loved so dearly, struggling behind layers of deceit. "This isn't you." The figure in the doorway remained still, but the space around it darkened, twisting into unsettled shapes. Grasping hands shot out from the darkness surrounding the pool, clutching for Sarah with a speed she couldn't comprehend. Mia's head tilted, eyes narrowing as if sensing the truth. "Mommy," she started, but then the sweet voice evaporated into a hollow laugh, mirroring the others. "Join us." 1,000 voices shouted, reverberating against Sarah's skull. The door began to creak closed, slipping away from her grasp like sand. "No." Sarah lunged. But Mark held her back, shaking his head fiercely. "We fight. We can't let them take her." As they prepared to face the encroaching figures, shadows danced along the edges of their vision. Paralyzing dread slithered through Sarah's veins. Her instinct screamed for her to run. But she was already too far gone. The need to save Mia burned brighter than the fear of losing everything. As the shadows lunged forward, Sarah felt icy hands grasp her ankles, pulling her toward the chaos. "Fight back!" Mark yelled, his voice snapping against the terror surrounding them. Desperation clawed inside Sarah, urging her to act as. Everything around them began to collapse into darkness. "Burn it!" she screamed, knowing the answer lay not in brute force but in banishing the reality that threatened to consume them. The pool hushed. Silence enveloped them for a heartbeat, and then they saw it, a flicker of flames igniting within the depths, the dark truths burning just out of reach. But in the growing fire, an unspeakable horror emerged, a new figure rising from the water whose face would shatter their final hopes. What had they awakened? Where could they even run now? The flames flickered and danced, casting grotesque shadows across the yard. In the heart of that inferno, the figure began to take shape, a ghastly outline emerging from the depths, with water dripping off its elongated limbs, each droplet splattering against the earth like dying promises. The face that rose from the pool was familiar, yet twisted a grotesque parody of Mia's features. Her eyes were wide, but void of life, swirling with darkness deeper than the abyss they had tried to flee. It smiled, but the grin was too wide, stretching across a face that had no warmth. "Mommy," it cooed, but the voice was a hollow echo, an imitation that turned Sarah's stomach. With instinct igniting within her, Sarah could barely breathe. "Mark, we have to do something," she gasped, pulling against her husband's grip, urgency breaking through their shared terror. "Hold on," Mark shouted, clenching his jaw as he dragged her backward. But Sarah could feel the icy fingers of the shadows creeping ever closer, the air thick with a suffocating dread that gnawed at her. "Get away from her!" she screamed, pushing Mark aside and torching her fear with a sudden surge of adrenaline. "Sarah, no!" he shouted, but she had already taken a step forward, her heart racing against the surreal spectacle. She grabbed a nearby branch, finding solace in its weight as she raised it before her, her pulse thunderous in her ears. "You're not Mia. You're just a trick." The figure recoiled, dark liquid sliding from its fingers and pooling at the base of the doorway, as if it thrived in the very essence of terror. With every ounce of her being, Sarah swung the branch at the grotesque reflection of her daughter, but the air shimmered, distorting her aim. The branch collided with a rushing wave of energy, sending a shock wave through her body, knocking her back with a violent force. "No!" Mark's voice cut through the haze as he caught her, panic painting his features. They stumbled backward, fear and confusion mixing into a potent storm inside them. As the flames inched closer, an unholy laughter echoed, intensified by their despair. "Join us!" The voices sang again, this time resonating from the pool, the edges of which began to bubble as if something even more terrible was beginning to emerge. The ground beneath them trembled. "We're not leaving. We're not going to give in," Mark shouted, but even the confidence in his voice faltered as new forms began to rise, figures twisted and bent, shadows morphing into nightmares, each a remnant of souls lost in the depths. They were not alone anymore. The figures advanced, each step deliberate, a silent promise of doom. The eyes of the drowned glistened with a malevolent hunger, and as they approached, Sarah felt the icy breath of the grave upon her neck. "Sarah! Look!" Mark pointed as the flickering flames illuminated a hidden path behind the pool, an overgrown trail leading away from the chaos. "We can make it." But the path was swallowed by thick shadows, tangled and writhing as if daring them to step closer. Sarah hesitated, torn between the horrifying pull of the figures and the flickering hope of escape. "Mia," she whispered, tears blurring her sight. "Please, if you're in there." But the creature only cackled, and the laughter morphed into screams, the sound of children trapped in a hell beyond comprehension. "Run!" Mark shouted, grabbing her arm forcefully as he pulled toward the trail. The figures lunged, their shadows snaking toward them, desperate to reclaim what they lost. The pair broke into a sprint, heart pounding, as the darkness clawed at their backs. The echoes of their own panic filled the air, mingling with the echoes of something much worse that had been unleashed. As they stumbled into the tree line, Sarah looked back one last time. The pool was now a raging maelstrom, a vortex of malevolent figures, each reaching out with ghostly hands. And then, through the chaos, she caught a glimpse of Mia's eyes, not empty, but filled with a pleading that shot through her like a knife. "Mommy!" the creature shrieked, the voice layered in agony and betrayal. "No!" Sarah cried, tearing her gaze away as she ran deeper into the shadowed woods. But the night was alive, the trees whispering secrets she couldn't comprehend. She felt them close in the darkness, pressing, surrounding them, and then silence. Was it over? Had they escaped? But the forest loomed ahead, wild and unwelcoming. A rustle behind them drew her attention, a figure breaking through the underbrush and the deepening shadows. What awaited them next remained uncertain. What more had they stirred in the depths of their worst fears? The trees loomed like ancient sentinels, their gnarled branches grasping at the sky, and Sarah's heart raced faster with every step she took. Mark was at her side, but they were not alone. From every shadow, whispers like the rustling of leaves seeped into the air, laden with the memories of chaos. Did we lose them? Sarah panted, her breath hitching as they paused by a thick trunk, their backs pressed against the rough bark. It felt more alive than ever. Mark shook his head, his face pale and damp with sweat. Not yet. They'll find us. Pain and fear intertwined in his voice. Maybe we can hide until she'll. His hand shot up, signaling her to silence. The chaos behind them reeled closer, a cacophony of warped voices mingling with fragmented echoes, children's laughter twisted into anguish. Shadows crawled like desperate fingers, groping for a purchase. What is that? Sarah's voice trembled, her eyes wide with dread as she strained to focus on the shifting darkness around them. They're looking for something. Mark whispered, gripping her wrist tighter. Us. She caught a glimpse of figures just beyond the edge of the tree's twisted shapes frolicking through the underbrush, hollow eyes fixed on them like predator and prey. Each flicker of flame from the remnants of the pool cast nightmarish silhouettes, making their limbs appear longer, more grotesque. What do we do? Sarah's mind buzzed, weighing every option. The path they fled seemed a distant memory now. Behind them, the figures seemed to surge forward, relentless. Keep moving. Mark urged, dragging her further into the bramble. The branches snagged at her clothes, tearing at her skin, leaving scratches like painful reminders of their imminent doom. As they fled deeper into the forest, the whispers intensified, transforming into a symphony of despairing cries. They spoke her name and reached with ethereal hands, beckoning her to return. Mommy, a voice floated through the chaos, soft yet piercing. It was Mia's voice, fearful, lost. Mark. Sarah stumbled, clutching her head as her heart dropped into a chasm of sorrow. They're trying to draw me back. Don't listen. He shouted, pulling her along. We can't go back, we have to stay together. But even he seemed unsure. They both felt the gravity of the pull, the unimaginable sorrow clawing at their hearts. The terrain transitioned from underbrush to a rocky outcrop, sharp stones digging into their feet. They paused, panting under a canopy of darkness, peering back toward the tree-lean, retreating shadows hungry for them. Just then, another rustle echoed, and they turned to face a new sound. A figure emerged, creeping into the blurry light of the fading moon. It was small, no taller than Mia had been when last they held her. The shape, though obscured by wild hair and tattered clothes, bore a frightening resemblance to their little girl. Mia. Sarah leaped forward, her chest swelling with hope and dread intermingled. Mommy, the figure rasped, stepping closer, revealing eyes filled with unfathomable sorrow. Help me. Mark grabbed Sarah, pulling her back. It's not her. Don't trust it. His voice echoed in the night, as behind the small figure, a myriad of shadows shifted, clutching, twisting, advancing like smoke on a flame. No, please. The small figure pleaded, reaching out with a trembling hand. Please. Every instinct screamed at Sarah to run, yet there was something deeper pulling her forward. If this was Mia, if it was really her, it was worth the risk. Suddenly, the laughter returned, enveloping them, wrapping cold arms around their shoulders like a shroud. The shadows behind the figure began to writhe, transforming into a storm of faces, lost children, haunting and desperate. Sarah's heart raced as the weight of the figures pressed down. She felt the air thicken, a crushing wave of sadness and despair washing over her. Just as she hesitated, Mark's voice broke through the fog. Sarah. We can't. But the desire to believe, to cling to hope, twisted and mixed with despair. Mia. She whispered, stepping closer. But what she didn't know was that the darkness had already wrapped itself around them. Mommy, the voice echoed, more frantic now. But now it was accompanied by something else, an underlying timbre, a looming dread that signaled they were not safe. And then, the shadows lunged. What have you done? The figure shrieked, revealing teeth too sharp, a smile too wide, transforming as the truth plunged into the night air. A surge of terror shot through Sarah just as the darkness enveloped them. They were surrounded, lost in the whispering shadows, consumed by the haunting cries that echoed from the depths of despair. "Run!" Mark's voice faded into the tumult as the world around them spun in darkness. Yet the tangled woods held answers. What will they uncover in the grip of lurking darkness? The shadows swept forward with a ravenous hunger, dragging Sarah and Mark into a suffocating embrace. The chilling laughter of children twisted into horror, echoing off the trees, warping around them like a living chain. Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, but the cacophony couldn't be silenced. Whispers clawed at her mind, drowning her in memories that weren't hers. "Mark! We have to," she gasped, but he cut her off, his grip on her tightening as the darkness writhed like a turbulent sea around them. "Just keep moving. Don't look back." His breath was ragged, each word a life raft in the storm, pushing through the relentless pull of despair. They stumbled deeper into the woods, the branches grasping at them like skeletal fingers. Each snap echoed far too loudly, as if the forest itself protested their escape. With every frantic step, the reality of their situation sank deeper. This was not just a chase, not just fear, it was a hunt. "Mark!" she cried, her voice breaking. "What if we can't? Don't you dare say it." He shot back, his eyes wild with a mix of panic and determination. "We're getting out of here." Ahead, a flicker of light pierced through the gloom, the remnants of the pool they had fled from. Heart pounding, Sarah pushed forward, hoping beyond hope that it would guide them to safety. The light flickered almost sarcastically, promising more than it could ever deliver. They reached the clearing, where the shadows seemed to gather and pulse, as if alive. The pool lay in ruins, dark water stagnant and still, reflecting their haunted faces. A faint glow emerged from the depths, calling to her like a siren's song. It promised comfort, familiarity, an escape from their current terror. But beneath that surface lay something darker, an undercurrent of malevolence that sent a shiver racing down her spine. "Sarah, don't!" Mark whispered, his voice trembling in her ear, pulling her back again, yet, even as he tried, the darkness oozed closer, seeping into her thoughts. "Mia, where are you?" The words slipped from her lips before she could catch them. Slithering through the shadows, there was again the chilling laughter, growing louder, melding into the chorus of despairing voices, beckoning her to join them. She turned in a panic, searching the writhing shadows for any sign of their child. And then it came. Mia's sweet, innocent voice sang out again, clear amidst the chaos. "Help me, Mommy, no!" Mark shouted, pulling Sarah away from the edge of the pool. "We can't, it's not real." But it was too late. The shadowy figures surged forward, transforming their features, melting into the faces of children, twisted in panic, reaching out with desperate hands. She saw twisted bodies, not her Mia, not anymore. They all wore the same anguish, a reflection of her own impending despair. "Look away, Sarah. Look away!" Mark screamed, but the voices spiraled, drowning out everything else. Sarah's heart clenched painfully. Without thinking, she tore free from Mark's grip, her instincts blinding her to danger. "Mia!" She stepped toward the pool, compelled by an unimaginable force, her heart racing with wild hope and terror, but as she drew closer, the water began to ripple, dark shapes swirling beneath the surface. Faces surfaced, mouths silently screaming, eyes wide with horror. "Please! Help me!" Mia's voice was now wrapped in the cries of the damned, twisting the weight of hopelessness around Sarah's heart, squeezing tighter. "No! No!" Mark lunged for her, but the shadows reached out, dragging him back into the suffocating dark, the chaos of voices swallowing his pleas. "Mommy, help!" The plea pierced her soul as a cold dread filled the air. Just then, the pool erupted violently, sending sprays of murky water high into the air. Emerging from its depths came something monstrous, a grotesque form drenched in shadow and sorrow, eyes glowing with flames that flickered with impending doom. "Join us forever," it hissed, a seductive whisper tangled with malicious delight. Frozen, Sarah felt her world tilt. She was teetering on the edge of a choice that could either save or doom them both. Behind her, Mark struggled against the shadows, his eyes wide with terror as he reached out, and for the first time, Sarah understood. The darkness was not just a force, it was a choice. Would she listen to the siren call of despair, or would she resist its lure? Time froze, the weight of the decision crashing down. Mark! She called, desperation edging her voice as she fought against the gripping shadows. What do I do? But the pulse of the night held its breath, both answers and questions swirling in the gloom, leaving Sarah to face a moment that could change everything. Make your choice, whispered the creature from the water, as the shadows closed in. What was waiting for her on the other side? The creature's voice slithered deep into Sarah's mind, pulling at her very essence. Join us forever. In that moment, terror took on a tangible shape, coiling around her like barbed wire. She felt the darkness prickle against her skin, a suffocating embrace that promised both relief and an eternity engulfed in despair. Her heart raced, each thud drowning out reason. Sarah! Don't listen. Mark's voice cut through the madness, raw and urgent. She turned to him, but her body weighed heavy as if bound by chains forged from her own fears. Desperation clawed at her throat, cutting off her breath. I can't. It's too strong. No. You're stronger than this. Fight it. His words pierced through the horror like a lifeline. But the shadows whispered back, hissing secrets, promises of things she had never known, things she couldn't forget. She stumbled backward, shaking her head as if that could dispel the darkness that was suffocating her. But the pool shimmered, and with each ripple, more faces emerged, children, lurking eyes, a cacophony of sobs and laughter merging into a chilling symphony. Mia's voice echoed again, the false innocence twisting into something darker. Mommy, please, Mark. We have to get out. Panic spilled in her voice, teetering on the edge of tears. He moved, foot sinking into the muddy earth as a shadow snaked toward him. Hold on. There was a tug at her sanity, urging her to listen. The creature above the water slithered closer. Its form twisted, a grotesque reflection of Mia, Shadow's hand delivering a false sense of security. You don't want to let her go, Sarah. Join us, unite your souls, live forever. Shut up. The words exploded from Sarah's lips. This isn't real. But as she fought to reject the urgency, the forest stirred, branches rustling like whispers echoing her doubts. The trees were alive, merging with the shadows, holding secrets that bled into her every thought. She could almost feel their touch, a tactile promise of safety luring her toward the abyss. Sarah, please. The creature seemed to lean back, allowing her a glimpse of the horror waiting just beneath the surface, a maw of endless night and despair. Faces erupted from the depths, screaming, pleading, choking on silent sorrows. It was a ghastly formation, a testament to the countless souls tethered to this cursed earth, souls that sought release through her. No! She screamed, tearing her gaze away. She focused instead on Mark. Even amidst the pressing shadows, his eyes cut through like a beacon. He was fighting. Help me break free. We can't give in. The pool began to bubble and churn, and the creature's voice slithered closer. It's not too late. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks. Mark! She called, lunging toward him, but the shadows surged forward, grasping at her. I'm with you. He shouted back, defiance sparking in his eyes. She could feel the weight of his hope anchoring her against the overwhelming darkness. Together, then. Summoning every ounce of strength, Sarah took a step back and closed her eyes. She could feel the creature's breath on her skin, chilling her to the bone. This is not who we are. We choose life. I choose Mia. With her final words, she severed the grip of despair, pulling Mark with her as they turned towards the shadows with defiance. The pool began to roar, the creature's face contorting in rage and hunger, the water boiling violently. You cannot escape. They ran, sprinting away toward the thicket, branches clawing at their backs as they pushed forward, desperation propelling them until finally, the waves of whispers faded into a haunting silence. Breathless and shaking, Sarah glanced back one last time, but the darkness barely receded, now just a distant memory draped in shadows. Mark grasped her wrist, urgency entwined with tear-streaked relief. "Are we safe?" he whispered, the question hanging heavily in the air. "I don't know." She looked ahead into the trees, shadows still shifting at the corners of her vision. Had they really escaped, or was this just a momentary reprieve? Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them, a low rumble echoing through the forest. The trees sighed, and the laughter returned, a chilling echo that resonated through her bones. Sarah Marquez's voice dropped, and she felt his grip tighten around her. None of it was over. The depths below still held their secrets, and the night was still young. "Mark, we need to move. Now." As they began to run again, the ground shifted beneath their feet, revealing a path they had not seen before. It stretched into the darkness, inviting and foreboding all at once. "Do you see that?" Sarah asked, her heart racing anew. "Yes. But we have to decide, and fast." They stood at the threshold of an unknown, and as the laughter grew, the shadows coiling tight, she knew they had to choose again. What were they willing to risk to uncover the truth? The path narrowed, swallowed by dense underbrush, as Sarah and Mark moved deeper into the woods. The laughter faded but left an echo hanging in the air, which gnawed at the edges of Sarah's sanity. Each rustle of leaves felt like a warning, a reminder that the night was not done with them yet. Do you think it's still coming?" Mark panted, his breath heavy with anxiety. "I don't know. We have to keep going," she replied, her voice shaky. The trepidation clawed at her spine. They could still feel the creature's lingering presence, a weight pressing down on them, urging them to turn back. As they pushed forward, the trees seemed to lean in, their limbs twisting into grotesque shapes. The moonlight fractured, casting elongated shadows that twisted and danced across the forest floor, as if the very darkness were alive and watching. "Look!" Mark suddenly paused, pointing to a flickering light ahead. Sarah squinted into the distance, the pale glow cutting through the darkness like a beacon. Hope surged, but a flicker of dread fluttered in her chest. "What is it? Maybe a cabin? Or another way out? Or another trap?" she whispered, the hesitation creeping back. They moved cautiously toward the light, urgency coursing through their veins. The ground felt soft and spongy underfoot, each step echoing with soft squelches that sent chills up Sarah's arms. With every inch closer, the glow pulsed, beckoning her with an almost hypnotic rhythm. Each pulse seemed to echo the creature's voice, a haunting invitation. She forced the thought from her mind, shaking her head to clear it. "It's just light," she muttered. Just as they reached the clearing, a sudden gust of cold wind howled through the trees, extinguishing the light for a mere heartbeat. The darkness closed in around them, thick and suffocating. Sarah's heart pounded as she clenched Mark's hand tighter, their skin cold and clammy against each other. "Did you see that?" Mark's eyes darted around nervously. Before she could answer, the glow flickered back to life, revealing an old well. It stood at the center of the clearing, forgotten and overgrown, weeds curling like fingers around its edges. The ghostly light emitted from the mouth of the well itself, casting fleeting shadows that danced across their faces. "Is it even safe to go near that?" Mark's voice trembled, the fear creeping in again. "What choice do we have?" Sarah scanned the area for any other options, but the forest felt alive and hostile, closing in like a noose. The sickening sweet scent of damp earth filled her nostrils as dread churned in her gut. With every step toward the well, the whispers returned, soft at first, then louder, a snake-like hiss crawling back into her mind. "Join us forever." "No," she shouted, cutting through the whispers that clawed at her sanity. She could feel strong hands running down her arms, grasping at her fragile resolve. The memories flooded back, not just of Mia, but of the lives lost to this place, souls intertwined with shadows, begging to be released. Mark, sensing her internal battle, gripped her shoulder hard. "We have to face it, whatever this is." As tears prickled in her eyes, her gaze fixed on the well. She felt an overwhelming pull, magnetic in its intensity. The darkness around them seemed darker, deeper, as if the well itself were a gateway into the underworld. Sarah, what if? Mark hesitated, his voice shaky. A sudden realization crashed over her like icy water. This was it. To truly escape, they might have to confront what lay within its depths. Together? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Together, he affirmed, determination igniting his gaze. They stepped closer. As they peered down, the glow swallowed them whole, revealing swirling shadows within a chaotic dance of faces twisted in agony, reaching up, begging for release. What have we done? Sarah gasped as the depth sang to her, an everlasting promise of unity with every soul trapped in its maw. The ground shuddered beneath them, shaking their conviction. Suddenly, from the well, a voice broke through, clear and sharp like glass. Choose wisely or be consumed. They froze, realization setting in. They weren't the first to stand at this precipice. What if our choice seals our fate? Sarah's voice trembled. And with those words, the forest answered with a furious rustle, as if the trees themselves were laughing, anticipating their next move. What now? Mark whispered, fear twisting the question into something raw. The shadows below beckoned, promising every desire, every sorrow, every regret. There would be no turning back. It was now or never. What would they risk to unravel the deeper horror? They stood at the edge of the abyss, and deep down, they both knew the true terror was yet to come. The night weighed heavy as the wind howled through the trees. Sarah and Mark stood at the edge of the well, heartbeats synced with the pulsing glow emanating from the depths below. Shadows danced like lost souls, recounting tales of anguish and despair. The air crackled with an electricity that sent chills racing down Sarah's spine. Together, they had encountered the unimaginable, terror that clawed at their hearts and whispering voices that begged to break free. But this moment felt different, like an inevitable showdown with everything they had tried to escape. What if we don't make it back? Mark murmured, fear flickering in his eyes. Then we fight together, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her. She could feel the weight of countless eyes watching, waiting for their decision, as if the depths of the well craved their resolve, hungry for surrender. The shadows below twisted into more recognizable forms, each face a memory, each cry a reminder of what they had lost to the pool's insatiable hunger. The depths felt alive, throbbing with the pain of those trapped for eternity, a virulent reminder that every choice could lead to darkness. Join us forever, the echoes rose, chorus-like and chilling. No. Sarah shouted, shaking her head to dispel the insidious offer. This ends now. With renewed determination, she grasped Mark's hand tighter. They drew closer to the well's edge, hearts racing in unison. The glow intensified, illuminating the well's hollow mouth and revealing a swirling vortex of darkness with a pull that felt almost comforting. It was as if it promised answers they desperately sought. Sarah, Mark started and hesitated, his gaze flicking nervously to the abyss, but Sarah silenced him with a fierce look. Together. No matter what happens, we face it together. In that moment, Sarah felt a wave of strength wash over her. She squared her shoulders and stepped forward, tilting her head toward the gaping maw. Whatever this darkness wants, it won't have us, she declared, voice steady and unwavering. Mark took a breath, nodding. Together, he said, each word carrying the weight of defiance. As they leaned over the edge, the shadows surged, swirling violently, a cacophony of cries echoed from the depths, lost souls both imploring and threatening. Choose wisely, the voice pulsed from within, deeper and darker than the silhouettes that writhed beneath them. Sarah's heart raced. They had faced monsters, but never like this. Taking the plunge into that swirling chaos felt surreal. Hand in hand, they turned their bodies toward the shimmering glow. They screamed into the void, at once fragile and fierce, challenging the darkness. We will not join you. Their echo ricocheted off the sides of the well, rising like a tide, refusing to sink. Suddenly, the ground trembled violently, a response to their defiance. The air thickened around them as they descended into a distorted reality, one that twisted their very beings. Sarah felt heat flash through her veins, and the glow dimmed, replaced by an all-encompassing darkness. The faces morphed, a collage of fear and sorrow threatening to merge into one. But in the maelstrom of despair, a single voice broke through, a soft, familiar, tender voice. "Mommy Mia." Sarah gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks. The voice, though intertwined with pain, was alive, battling against the suffocating claw of the shadows. "Please, Mommy." The plea sliced through Sarah's heart with the force of a knife. "No, no, no." Mark shouted, trying to pull her back, but Sarah couldn't tear her eyes away from the ghostly glow at the well's depth. "It's not real, Sarah. Don't fall for it. We have to focus." She blinked hard and fought the gripping shadows. "Mia. If you're in there, fight back." Each muffled cry echoed, an interplay of hope and despair that shattered Sarah's resolve. The well vibrated violently, shadows twisting in erratic patterns. In that moment, Sarah felt the link between her and Mia unbreakable and powerful. "I choose to fight with love," Sarah shouted. "With hope. I choose life." The response was immediate. A surge of warmth enveloped her body, reaching into the abyss and refracting the darkness. For a heartbeat, the shadows quivered and fell back, as light erupted from the heart of the well, igniting their surroundings. "Mia. We're coming," Mark cried, pushing forward as they struggled to hold on to the warmth of each other. With an explosion, the well burst wide open, releasing a blinding light. In that splendid eruption came visions of lost souls flooding back to life, grasping hands reaching for one another, sharing warmth, love, and all the emotions they had yearned for. "Mommy, help me." The plea lingered as Sarah felt a shift. Light broke through the shadows, illuminating the little girl struggling against the grip of darkness. "Hold on, baby." Sarah screamed, the force of her love spiraling toward her child. And as the light merged, Mia's true form emerged from the swamp of shadows. Her innocent laughter rang like a hymn, breaking the spell. "Mommy. Daddy." She cried, extending her arms, pure joy flooding her features, each smile filled with life. The darkness hissed, retreating as the entity clawed for power, but the bond between them, rekindled by love, illuminated the path. "Together." Mark yelled again, and they held hands tighter, determination propelling them into the light. With one final scream, they surged forward, escaping the ravenous grip of the well. The pulse of love drowned out the darkness, and in that moment of unity, the malevolence began to fragment, the faces fleeing, the cries dissipating. With a burst of blinding radiance, Sarah, Mark, and Mia erupted into the bitterness of the night, collapsing onto the forest floor, breathless but whole. As the echoes of despair faded, the forest, once alive with shadows, became still, leaving the Martins under a blanket of stars shimmering above them. They looked into each other's eyes, understanding bound them, enriched with a love that transcended darkness. "We did it," Sarah whispered, tears of joy cascading down her cheeks as Mia flung her arms around them. In that moment, together as a family, they took their first steady breath. The horrors they had faced became lessons of resilience, a reminder that love, despite their dark encounters, could conquer even the deepest shadows. As dawn began to break, painting the sky with hues of gold and warmth, they stood together, no longer shackled by fear. It was time to leave behind the burden of the cursed pool and forge ahead into the promised light of the new day, and with that, they turned, stepping forth, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead in their lives together, united under the endless sky, a family reborn from the depths of despair. Now, this is where you come in. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss a single moment of our exclusive stories that touch your heart and chill your spine. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your thoughts on this haunting ending. What did you think of the Martins' journey? And be sure to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this rush and uncover their own fears. This is the moment to engage and lift our community together. Let us unravel more chilling tales that linger long after the last word. Don't wait even one more second to show your support.